So one of the things that's important is you think about, so you think you need a mobile app here, is oftentimes I urge people, you don't need an app yet. So just don't focus on building an app quite yet. What you're looking for is ultimately ways to test whether or not you need an app. And so ultimately some ways to do this are by building a mobile optimized site. Actually, some of the best things are just using text messaging. Seeing if you can get someone to text you from their phone, or, for example, take Instagram photos or Snapchat, whatever it might be. You're just testing, do people do the activity you want them to do on mobile? So the goal is to get people to act like they have an app without actually having an app. So tell me a little bit about yourself. What's your background? What do you do?
Right. I'm a sophomore at the School of Foreign Service here.
Okay.
And so a few months ago, my best friend dropped out of college to start a startup.
Okay.
And he would always like call me every day and just tell me about how everything was. And he told me about a problem because he worked in a space with over 100 other startups, and they all emptied into one common cafeteria. But since no one really knew each other, they would like all just sit by themselves and pretend to be busy checking their phone when they weren't doing anything else.
Mm-hmm.
So there was like a lot of potential that I saw in productive conversations. And people always say that the best conversations and the best connections between people occur over food. So I figured, why not start with, say, the dining hall here and create an app where someone could maybe make a really small, like, quick profile, make a short blurb about themselves, and ping their location if they're open for conversation, and anyone walking in the app could just open up and see, oh, all these people here have basically said, I'm free to talk. So they'll just like, peruse all the different profiles and just sit and have a chat.
Great. This sounds like a magical dating app to me. Is that?
That's actually what my
That's great. That's great. Well, that's excellent. So, tell me a little bit. Have you ever developed a mobile app?
Yes.
You have. Okay, good. So your benefit there. Have you ever? Are you a developer? Are you a?
It's just a hobby that I'm really passionate about.
Cool. I like that. So, so are you serious about this idea? Is this an idea that you want to take forward, or are you just kind of thinking about where are you on the process of deciding to do this?
Right. The absolute lower left corner.
Okay, here in the bottom left corner. Have you talked to other people about this, or is this still kind of
just
in the...
amongst my friends?
Cool. And so what do your friends say about it?
They like the idea a lot, and the ones who are like in the business school here say like get some surveys out and like ask more people that you don't know.
Sure. Yeah, no, I think that's the right feedback for sure. As I think part of the point you're at right there is, especially being here at Georgetown, I think you've got a right group of people just to talk to and ask about. And I think one of the things you might consider doing too is literally just going to the cafeterias and looking for anyone who's sitting alone and see if, what their thoughts are on it, just kind of like ask conversation, but don't lead the witness, but just see, hey, are you sitting here alone because your friends aren't around, or whatever, are you looking to find someone to sit with? Almost like, do you mind if I sit here and chat with you? Kind of see how that piece works. So let's talk about how you would actually build a test to see if it's worth building an app. Because obviously, I don't know if you know, the average app costs somewhere around like $10,000 to build. So it's a little bit expensive if you're not a developer like yourself. Right. So what's the key thing that you think is important? So if you look at this as a concept, and let's just keep it as simple as possible, that you want to basically build an app for college students to basically find someone to grab a bite with at any given time. So let's just scope it as that for now, and eventually we can help startups and things like that. So what do you think is the biggest kind of risk or challenge to basically making this a successful app?
Okay. So one of my friends said it stands or it has a risk of becoming a stalker app. So I figure a big point to address is like the security, maybe
Sure.
Not putting your picture up there,
Sure.
or something like that.
Sure. I think the other risk that you have here a little bit is, if you ever heard this called, it's called the empty bar syndrome, right? Where you don't want to go into a bar where there's no one else around, so there's this risk a little bit of like, how do you make sure that someone has a great experience? You kind of got they call it the marketplace problem a little bit, right? Where you want to make sure that someone who's looking to meet someone to have lunch with has someone else there looking, so you've got this kind of a matching issue a little bit.
Right.
So that's, I think, one of the big challenges. And so in my last company, it was a marketplace company, the same thing. People would ask for a plumber, or they'd ask for an electrician, or they'd ask for someone to clean their house, and we need to make sure someone was listening on the other end. So you've got kind of a challenge of matching, and I think one of the things that you'll help solve that by is by picking a dense place to do it. So let's start by thinking about how you would design your test. So where do you live on campus, or where do you live?
In the Southwest Quad.
Southwest Quad.
Yeah.
Okay. So do you live in a dorm, or do you live?
Yes, I do.
Okay. How many people live in your dorm?
So 22 on the floor, 6 floors, 132.
Okay, got it. Good math right there. So how many? So there's a dining room that's associated with that, or
There's just one dining hall for everyone.
just one in all? Okay,
Yeah.
got it. So is that where you would think you would run your test then, most likely, or?
Mhm.
Good. Okay, so I think that's good. The first part is like scoping this in a place that A, you could drive to. Sounds like you can even walk to. So you're good in that sense right there. And then essentially, I think the next trick a little bit is even scoping it even more narrow right there. Is obviously, I think, you're going to be doing interviews and things like that, but you might want to just scope this in a way that you can control all the participants. So do you have like kind of are you friends with all the 22 kind of on your quad or your wing?
Yeah, pretty much.
So does that group of people, are they all pretty close, pretty good friends, or could you say that you could walk into any of their rooms and they would say like, hey Chris, how's it going?
Probably half.
Okay, half of them. All right, good. So do you have like, are you in a part of any clubs or groups or organizations?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Should I?
Sure, tell us what are you?
I'm a coordinator for DC schools.
Okay.
And I'm part of the Georgetown Vietnamese Student Association.
Okay. Cool. So any one of these cases could be how you would find kind of a smaller group to test it. So in this one, it might be a perfect way to find kind of a couple dozen or a dozen people that you can test this in. So I would scope it as narrowly as possible. So maybe to approach the Vietnamese Student Association, or some of the people that are on your dorm floor, whatever it is, like to find a group that's probably 15 to 20 people max, because you essentially want to see, can you wind up testing this as a concept before you wind up going to build an app, right? So that's the first thing that I would recommend. So let's just pick, why don't we pick the Vietnamese Student Association, just to keep it kind of simple for now, and we'll say that. So the first thing that I would do is focus that as your kind of test subjects that you want to build this on. The second thing to do is to figure out kind of how do you wind up mimicking an app behavior without actually having to build an app.
Right.
So what's the kind of key behavior that you want to incent? You want to get people to have lunch together.
Right.
Is that right? Yeah. Okay. So you're looking to figure out a way that people can, essentially without annoying each other, but figure out if there's a way to like match up with each other, like, hey, I'm interested in having lunch.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you think that there might be some reason for there could be a subtle dating element of this too, potentially.
Potentially, yeah.
Potentially. All right. No judging, people. This is great. Snapchat started to become a $2 billion company as a result of very many weird things. So, all right, so that's where I first start. So we're going to pick a small group right there, and we're going to figure out what are the things that we want to simulate with using what exists on a mobile phone, kind of to simulate what it would be like with an app. So, any thoughts on what kind of things could you do? What about text messaging? Could you use texting or group texting?
Right. Okay. So how people normally coordinate like big group lunches anyway.
Yeah. So one of the things that you could do is essentially, could you start to maybe do a structured kind of a group text? So you essentially get these people to agree to participate for a week. Like, hey, we're going to do something fun. We're going to have kind of have lunch with a member of the group, right? And so you structure it in a way that you kind of agree to be the administrator, we'll call it, of the group chat. And there's kind of different apps you could use, like there's Beluga, or there's other kind of like group chat apps that you could use on mobile to see what people do. So that might be one idea, is just to do that right there.
Okay.
The other one that you could potentially do is do you use like, what kind of social media apps do you use?
Foursquare.
Foursquare? Do you use like Twitter?
I don't actually.
You don't use Twitter?
No.
Boy, ruined it for me. So Twitter, do you use anything else like, use Facebook at all?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
you use Facebook. Who knows? You don't use Twitter. So you might be able to use one of those apps as a way to kind of help facilitate conversation. So for example, what if you basically could create a Twitter handle that people could all kind of follow, and people could just, you could then retweet what people posted to that handle. So for example, say like, hey, I'm going to be having lunch in 30 minutes, and you retweet that out to kind of all the followers in that group.
Right.
So I think you've got a couple different options to test this. If I were you, I think the first thing that I would do is think about, all right, what is the kind of behavior that you want to do, and then what is the metrics that you want to measure? So if after a week of running this with the Vietnamese Student Association, and let's say you have 20 members that agree to participate in your kind of lunch pilot, we'll call it that, right?
Okay.
What do you think would be a good result for you? What do you want to learn after that week?
Probably just how often like it's like a miss instead of a hit.
Okay.
Or like no one replies.
Sure.
So like that
So
would
you're
be, like,
looking
a
to,
problem.
yeah, that would be, so let's maybe start with the positive. So do you want to see how many people wind up actually having a match and having lunch?
Okay.
So maybe that's like one way to think about it. Like, how many people do you think just naturally, without you managing it all, will actually just connect, right? So you figure out kind of some solution. You might have a couple solutions you try, but start with maybe the group text, and you get everyone on this, and you say like, hey, this week it's going to be get to know someone else week, and we're going to use this group text thing and see how it works. And you just track to see how many people use it. The following week, you might actually do something where you try to see what happens if you administer it. So you essentially kind of let the group, again, run it for another week, and then you help make sure that no one has a miss. So you step in and say like, hey, this person's looking for lunch here. You're calling people in the group to say like, hey, you haven't had lunch yet. You need to go have, meet up with this person, or hey, this girl's cute. You need to basically make sure that you have lunch with her. But ultimately what you're doing is you're kind of then simulating the behavior that you want to do, and ultimately seeing like, can you wind up getting people to essentially have lunch together or not eat lunch alone, or kind of even make the ask to like say I'm interested in having lunch.
Alright.
So that seemed like something that, I guess the other thing, again, you can try it in different ways, but I think as you're really experimenting, I would find a group of people that kind of in some ways are interested in being your guinea pigs a little bit and saying like, hey, for the next month, I'm going to try some cool things to help us get together and more engaged. And one of the neat things about finding a group that you're already a part of is, volunteer to say like, hey, one of the things that I would like to do more is be able to get more to know more of the members. So I would like to volunteer to help facilitate this. And you can kind of like volunteer the rest of the people to participate in kind of a set of activities that you want in. So use your kind of advantage that you have a relationship with the club to get them to run your test right there.
Yeah, okay.
So I would look to see kind of what are the different, if I were mapping out your time, figure out what do you think is the most likely way that mirrors what people do currently. So do you think that most people use group text or text kind of currently?
Just SMS probably.
SMS? Okay. So then maybe build a test around SMS. Pick your current, wherever you can get access to the easiest. And then basically, track and measure and see how many matches how many people are asking per day, how many people are replying per day, and how many people are kind of missing per day. How many makes and misses are you guys making? And ultimately what you're looking at is seeing like, hey, it turns out that there actually is a real need for people who kind of don't want to eat alone or do want to do it. And you should continue to do your interviewing, obviously find out, as you're spending time in the cafeteria separate from this, but I think you can build a really simple MVP. And if you've got people who are like literally using this thing every day, the key one is like daily active users. If you've got people who are asking for lunch, every day or every other day, you've got something on your hands, then it's worth kind of taking it to the next level to see, can you build an app, and do you do a profile and those other things. You may find something with Twitter or Facebook groups or whatever those kind of things are, but I would say your MVP is going to be facilitating better communication amongst that group and trying a number of different things along the way.
Okay.
Do you have any thoughts or questions on does that seem doable?
Yeah, that seems doable. I have just a question or two. So,
Any as you want.
So the first question is, so like this is people that I know and trust.
Sure.
People who do know and trust me.
Yep.
So how would I get people who don't know / trust me?
I think one of the things that you might find too is that, in building the first concept is oftentimes they start out by you and people who are connected to you. You're the face. Then what you oftentimes will see is like, if this thing starts to work, and again, if it doesn't work amongst your friends, it's going to be difficult potentially to have it spread one more degree out. But one test is to see, hey, everyone can invite one person in. You've got one invite you can get in this group, and they have to talk to you to get into the group. Make it feel exclusive a little bit, and see how this network starts to grow as you give people a little bit of an invite. So you can try that. The other one that you could try is you could basically launch a new club or something here on campus, which is like the lunch club. And all it is like your whole job is basically to like help people have lunch with someone else who they've never met before. And all strangers, but see if that works.
Okay, well, makes sense.
Try, right?
Yeah.
So any kind of comments or questions from the crowd out here?
What do you do about the security, excuse me, the security, how do you go about investigating how to avoid people with the risk that you're concerned about, the stalking issue?
Yeah, I think part of the trick in this one is a little bit is why I recommend you start with a group that already has kind of a trusted relationship. So that's why I think it's probably a good idea to start with a club or a set of people that already have some kind of a vetting process to it. I think if you can figure out that if people, again, the dogs eat the dog food, if people will use this, you're going to eventually have to figure out ways to do security and validation, but at the end of the day, that only matters if people are using it, right? If people are really using this to get together, then you're going to have to figure out those ways. And you know, one of the things that Facebook did early on, right, which was essentially, in order to sign up for Facebook, you had to have the .edu address of the school you were at. So it might be that in your solution, it has to be a Georgetown address, or you have to be referred by another member, or whatever it might be. But it's a good problem to have. Like, if you've got the point where people are using this regularly, then I think you can worry about some of the security stuff. But see if you've already developed kind of a trusted network. See if that kind of helps people already. Other comments or questions or thoughts? Who wants to go to lunch? Anyone raise their hand? Anyone? I like this. I think you should give it a try and keep me posted on how it goes out. I think you could do this again, one meeting, and basically just collect everyone's text message or their phone number and see how to test it. And again, I think the one trick to monitor for sure is make sure that you own kind of the experiment. So build a 1-week experiment and be monitoring every single text message that comes through. Track it, measure it. Do the same thing then, if you decide to say, I'm going to then intervene. So first off, it's just going to be a totally unstructured place, and then you're going to intervene or whatever it might be. Right. But I think to see how people behave, and you'll find some interesting things out about human behavior. This is an example of a company that now is worth somewhere in like $2.3 billion or $3.5 billion, which is Uber, which actually started out literally as a black car that Travis, the CEO of Uber and founder of Uber, hired one night so that he and his friends could go out to the club. And another one of his friends heard about this, like, oh my God, you bought a driver? Like, that's awesome. Can I use it too? Like, sure, just text me where you want him to go. And next thing you know, Travis had more and more of his friends asking for the text phone number of this driver here. And that was the start of Uber. So again, why I'm a big fan of text messaging is there was no app, there was Uber. There was literally just a text message that made this thing work. And again, he proved that human behavior worked that way. And so again, why I think text messaging could be a great way to build a mobile app without ever building a mobile app.